Hello, my name is Leonie Matteau. I am a doctoral student from the province of Quebec, Canada. I have a degree in nursing science, and my interests are now focused on occupational health and implementation science. My research project is about the use of laughter therapy among workers. This poster marks the beginning of my journey, and I'm very grateful to be sharing it with you today. Indeed, as a first step in my doctoral program, I am conducting a scoping review of the literature, of which I'm presenting for the first time today portion of the preliminary results. Let's look at it together. The World Health Organization reported in 2022 that 15% of working age adults suffer from mental health problems. According to the most recent estimates, approximately 12 billion workdays are lost annually in the world due to depression and anxiety, resulting in a cost of $1 trillion per year in productivity losses. The situation in Canada is equally concerning, with about 1 in 5 working individuals facing a mental health problem each year. Absenteeism stemming from these problems in mental health account for nearly one-third of disability costs in the country. Since 60% of the global population is employed, preventing mental health problems in the workplace has become a well-known public health priority. Evidence showed that perceptions of good organizational climate and relationships between workers is significantly associated with positive employee mental health outcomes, such as lower levels of burnout, depression, and anxiety. Interventions aimed at simultaneously improving the individual stress management and the organizational climate have been recommended. Among these interventions, there's the laughter therapy that emerges as a potential solution. This therapy, rooted in the physical and mental health benefit of laughter, involves inducing laughter in participants through self-induced laughter, such as pretending to laugh. Literature reviews and meta-analysis reported the benefits of laughter therapy in improving mental health in the general population, including reducing the anxiety, stress, depression, and also some improvements in sleep quality and overall well-being. Recent intervention studies have been conducted to assess the effectiveness of laughter therapy in the workplace. While benefits have been observed in physiological stress indicators, including blood cortisol and blood pressure, as well as in self-reported stress levels, a lack of positive outcomes has also been reported in some studies. The synthesis of this emerging literature is required to orient future research, as the available studies seem to be methodologically heterogeneous. For example, the therapeutic components and health indicators examined were different. They have significant limitations, for example, very small sample sizes and absence of a group control. And they present also some mixed results. The current scoping review of the literature aimed to address this need. The systematic examination of scientific writing gathered the knowledge and identified potential success conditions for laughter therapy in the workplace, documenting the components of laughter therapy in this very first poster. Such an overview facilitates the comparison of applied processes, and it will be easier then to assess the comparison of the results. Therefore, the aim of this scoping review was to explore the components of laughter therapy used in the workplace. We followed the stages of HRC and Mahee's framework for the methods of this review. First, we identified the research questions. The research question for this part of the results is, what are the components of laughter therapy studied in the workplace? Then a thorough research strategy was elaborated with the collaboration of a university librarian to appropriately choose databases and keywords. Databases included the Academic Search Complete, Medline, and CINAHL, all from EBSCO. PsycInfo from RPA, Web of Science from ISI, and Dissertations and Thesis Global from ProQuest. Keywords included workers and laughter therapy with various inclinations of those two concepts. Afterwards, all the entries identified through the databases using the search strategies were entered first in EndNote to deduplicate, and then to DistillerSR for study selection. To be selected, the study had to report on interventional research using laughter therapy among workers. Pairs of independent reviewers realized this selection, first screening the titles and abstracts, and then the full text. As you can see in the flow diagram that I present here, we also identified additional studies from the reference list of included studies and using the cited by tool of Google Scholar. Afterwards, a comprehensive data extraction tool was elaborated, including all data that would allow to describe the studies included in the interventions. For the interventions, we use the template for interventions description and replication, tidier checklist. Pairs of independent reviewers realized this data extraction using DistillerSR. And then a thematic analysis was conducted for the data extracted using the tidier checklist, which allowed to explore the components of our interventions more precisely. We explored the procedures, the person who delivered the intervention, the mode of delivery of the intervention, along with the place where the intervention was delivered, the frequency of the intervention, the duration of each session, total number of sessions, and the total length of the interventions when you combine all the interventions together. So let's have a look at the characteristics of the 26 included studies. First, as you can see in the table, there are most of the studies were pre-post design, 17 of them, which means 73% of them. We also found that out of these 17, 11 were only one group, so there was no group control. And 2 studies reported using mixed methods with a little bit of qualitative data. It's important to note that out of the reports we found, 16 were articles, but there were 9 theses and 1 study report, which were not reviewed by peers. The number of participants varied a lot, the smaller one being 7 participants, and the bigger one had 200 participants. But as you can see, we divided the number of participants in 2 groups. 7 to 59 participants were in 16 of the studies reported, and from 60 to 200 participants were in 10 of the studies. The proportion of men and women was not reported in 5 of the studies. Otherwise, in 16 of them, there was a majority of women, and in 4 of them, a majority of men. No study had exactly the same amount of men and women. As you can see from the pie graph, you can see that most of the studies were from Asia, much more than half. And then comes the studies from Middle East, and 2 studies in each of America, Europe, and Africa. The little word cloud of the outcomes shows you that the most studied outcome of the intervention was stress. And you can also see anxiety, depression, burnout, cortisol, and there are a lot of other outcomes which appear very much smaller because they only were studied once. The types of worker also varied a lot. The most predominant one was healthcare workers, followed by education workers, as it could be either in primary or high school, or it could be in university settings. Then there was white collars, people working in offices, then industrial workers, and there was one study uh, among security guards and one study among military pilots. So there was a big variety of types of workers. So now let's have a look at the results, the components of laughter therapy in the workplace. So to begin with the procedure, I have to say that 4 of the studies did not report how the procedure was conducted at all. They did not talk about the laughter therapy intervention at all. They just said the participants received laughter therapy. So that was not very talkative. Among those who reported, um, we found that 8 of them included an introduction to laughter therapy, either presenting the background of laughter therapy, the rationale, or the objectives. Then the activities included in the sessions were laughter exercise in most of the studies. Breathing, deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing in 15 of the studies. There was very often some warm up, including whatever is clapping or stretching in 10 of the studies. Many studies also talked about vocalization or chanting and doing ho, 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 ha, ha, ha. So 8 of the studies. Meditation or relaxation was also presented in 7 of the studies. Body movements, childish games, and in some cases it was hard to distinguish which was childish games versus laughter exercises. Affirmations, discussion on joyful matter, which was in only one study, and the emotional freedom technique, which was not defined by the researchers and was only presented in one study. Also part of the procedure, 4 studies reported inviting participants to express their feelings and impressions after each session, which was very interesting. Then about the person who delivered the intervention, well, 12 studies did not report at all who delivered the interventions. 8 of them reported it was the researcher, out of which 3 said what training had the researcher had in order to give the intervention. And one study said that the intervention was validated by experts. So that was not very clear. So that's why we put it here in little, I don't remember the name. And then the third party, in 5 studies, they mentioned that a third party with a training delivered the intervention, and one study said there was a facilitator with absolutely no description of who that was and what training they had. The mode of delivery and the place where the intervention was delivered, well, was not reported in 17 of the studies. In those that it was reported, 6 were face-to-face, 5 of them stating it was at the workplace, and one which wrote it was delivered in a quiet place. We don't know if it was at the workplace. And then 3 of the studies were conducted online using Zoom. The number of sessions varied a lot between 1 to 28. The mean was 12 sessions with a mode of 8, and there was 4 studies. I did not report how many sessions there were. The duration of the sessions was varied between 10 to 90 minutes, with a mean of 42 minutes and a mode of 60 minutes in 6 studies. 5 studies did not present the duration of the sessions. As per the frequency, it varied between 1 a day in 8 studies, 1 to 3 times a week in 12 studies, and up to once a month in only 1 study. There is also a study that reported only 1 session, so there was no frequency, it just happened once. And there was missing information in 4 of the studies. Finally, regarding the total duration of the intervention, 1 to 90 days, so very variable also. The 1 day was the one study with only 1 session, and the 90 days, well, was up to 3 months. The mean of the duration of the intervention was 36 days, with a standard deviation of 24, so very, very variable. And the mode of the intervention was 30. So 10 studies reported the intervention to last a month, for 4 weeks, or 30 days, or 28 days. So 30 days was the most frequent reported duration of the intervention. So this was a very interesting study to conduct. The next steps for me and for this research are to answer the following questions in the same scoping review. So I want to report on how the implementation unfolded in the reviews, in the articles reviewed, what facilitated or hindered the implementation, whether what were the indicators of impact. So we know the outcomes now, but was it positive? Was it negative? This is what is waiting for me tomorrow. And then after the scoping review and after the completion of my doctoral study courses, I will be able to start the study. I will start with a deliberative workshop where we will identify factors likely to influence the implementation with the people with whom the intervention will be implemented. So, want to implement laughter therapy among workers in the healthcare in a healthcare center, and it seems to be very difficult to work out all the kinks of their schedules. So we will do a workshop with them to verify with them how, when, and in what conditions the implementation should be delivered. And then after that, we will be able to implement laughter therapy for 12 months and evaluate its implementation and its effectiveness. We are wanting to have a look at mental health and the productivity, so the absenteeism or presenteeism, for example. I invite you to scan the QR code if you want to know more about this scoping review. And please do contact me if you need any more intervention, if you have questions about this study. This is my life, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy to share it with you, and I thank you very much for having watched this beautiful poster. Have a great day.